Welcome, everyone. This is the first of 3 info sessions that we will be offering this week for our upcoming summer 2024 courses. My name is Petros Babasikas. I'm the director of the undergraduate program. We are excited to be offering these courses to you this summer. They are available to students who generally are in their 3rd and 4th year, especially for this current section, the Design Research Internship Program. And our other summer courses are available to students who have completed their, who will have completed their 2nd year in the beginning of the summer term in May. So they would have completed our ARC 200 and ARC 201 requirements. And this is also the 3 sessions, one today that will be delivered by Pina Petricone, Professor Pina Petricone, who's responsible for launching and running and really inventing the Design Research Internship Program, which is now in its 3rd year of operation. Tomorrow, Professors Peter Seeley, Mauricio Quiros Pacheco, and myself presenting 3 study abroad courses. And then on Thursday, Professors Hoban and Town presenting 2 of 3 design build courses that we'll be offering this summer. And so this is a great opportunity for everyone to ask questions. And there will be, apart from the instructors, also representatives from the Office of the Registrar and Student Services who might be able to answer also some of them. And we'll try our best to explain the process. What is special this year is that we're announcing the courses a good month earlier than before. Last year was a kind of big production for us, really presenting an entire new summer term. And last year was still not too far after COVID. So it was an important summer, just getting all of this activity in place and having students travel to different parts of the world or stay here in Toronto and do amazing work. And this year, after this first launch, we are able to, get things out earlier and make sure everyone can have better access and participation in the programs. So I think my introduction is more or less this. I would also like to do a land acknowledgement, since we are all physically or virtually at the University of Toronto's land, which I wish to acknowledge. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. And today, this meeting place is still home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we're grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. That is my brief introduction to the summer programs. I will see if any quick questions have been posted on the chat, just in case something that I can answer is already there. But a couple of things before I pass it on to Professor Petricone. The first thing is that there's a detailed set of descriptions of all our courses, their application requirements, their dates of offering and operation. That is online, and the link has been posted by Tina on the chat, so you can click on that link and really read all the information you need, including course descriptions and requirements. And then there will be a process, and you will have some time to put together your applications. The reason why we're getting them out early this year is to make sure that everyone is given proper consideration, and that you are also able to make good plans in advance of the summer, especially for some of the traveling courses. This planning is evident, but also for your general, summer planning. So this is really the launch of the program, and you can see the different dates or applications on the website. So I think I think this is pretty much what I wanted to share with you. Maybe just, yeah, the important dates are really that you have about 13 days to send in your applications. So that is tight. It's really the beginning of reading week for you, but it's important we receive these applications by February 19th to be able to go through all the steps to consider them and offer you positions in our various opportunities. And there is an online form for the Design Research Internship and for the other courses, which you can fill out. And I think the different steps you have to take are fairly clear on this form. And most of your questions, I think, can be answered on that. But I will also be here in this virtual room tomorrow discussing the courses, the study abroad courses. So if there's any questions, maybe on the process and the selection, or on the deadlines or the general planning that might have not been answered in this session, I will be happy to answer them also tomorrow. I see in the chat the questions about requirements, expectations. Professor Petricone will be able to answer, and also on the firms. So that's my part. Thank you for joining us, and I will stay silently for a bit, and then I will see the rest of you tomorrow. And Pina, please go ahead.
Great. Thank you so much, Petros. I'm just going to see if I can do this full screen. Oh, sorry, I did have it at full screen. Apologies. Yes, so as Petros mentioned, I'm Pina Petricone, an associate professor at Daniels. Also share my time as principal of Giannone Petricone Associates. I apologize for that loud noise behind me. It's a little odd that I can't see you all giving this presentation virtually, but really happy to be able to really give all of this information, get the process going much earlier this year than actually the last 2 years, which I think will only make things hopefully easier for you, but also more conducive to summer planning and to not just for yourselves, but also for the firms, the partnering firms involved. So, so the DRIP program is actually a design internship experiential learning initiative for senior level architectural studies students. It actually is designed to bridge your academic knowledge with professional practice, but not in the way that we typically understand internships in the design professions. This, of course, is long, oh my God, probably from the beginning of the definition of architecture as its own discipline that has been the model for education, which is interning and apprenticing. That has dissipated into all of the professional programs in architecture, landscape architecture, and urbanism, where usually there is a kind of work professional experience, so to speak, component. Many schools in the country and of course, even locally in Toronto, have that as a required component. We usually refer to those as work terms. The University of Toronto's undergraduate program, I realize, is so unique, unique across the country. And I'm realizing through DRIP that it is also unique across North America in that it's rooted in the liberal arts pedagogy and format, which is what DRIP ultimately leverages. So DRIP essentially selects students to be paired with professional practices, professional practitioners in the city of Toronto for now, internationally in the future, but for now, practitioners that are local, where students actually work in those firms for 6 weeks, undergoing design research that has been defined by the research, by the professional practice to engage interns in their daily projects that require this research. It really is only possible because of the nature of your program. In other words, the work that you're engaged in calls on the skills that you've been honing over the last 3 and 4 years to participate and ultimately contribute to ongoing projects in these firms. So essentially, the internship begins on May 6th this year. It is in the first part of the summer term, of course, necessarily because you are going to be working full-time in these firms with the exception of Wednesdays, which I will get into a little later. So this is the list of 18 firms, 20 internships offered last summer. And you can see by the list that it's a very impressive list. There are firms that are top firms in the city and have all participated with enthusiasm. A great number of them are actually participated in the inaugural DRIP program as we know it in 2022. But of course, additional firms, and we are hoping to add even more firms this summer in our aim to grow the program. DRIP actually, even though it is year 3 of the program in this format, I launched DRIP as a pilot in the summer of 2021. It was actually supposed to launch in the summer of 2022, but of course, COVID hit and postponed for the following summer. Guess what? Summer of 2021, we were still pretty much working from home. And so I decided to offer a format of DRIP that actually took on 12 interns at my office, Janone Petricone Architects, in order to undergo a 2-week intensive, and then they stayed on part-time for the duration of the summer to complete the atlas. This image on the right here is a bit of a composite of some of the drawing work that the students did in that internship. So I thought I would show you just some examples. I think it's no better way to understand the nature of the work you might be doing with some examples of student work internships that happened in the last 2 years. This is Jashan and Melody that worked at WZMH. WZMH actually has a separate research R&D arm in their office called Sparkbird, and they worked on a very specific and very interesting project that has taken on a life of its own called Speed Stack. It started off as an efficient housing model and now has taken off into war-torn countries and disaster relief as very fast repair of temporary housing. So it's really exciting. Melody and Jashan actually spent time developing metrics of the idealized modular system and building models to test out those ideas. This Farrell Partners also took on 2 interns and tends to take on 2 interns because the work that they're doing, similar to WZMH, they have a research project underway of a book publication called Constructing Health. It's a firm that actually does a lot of healthcare design and very innovative work around the world. This was work that the interns did on the actual book and publication and graphic development. Dorothea Kiss at LGA Architectural Partnership, they developed, it was a kind of post-occupancy look at some of the housing projects that they've done to try to, in a graphic way, understand flexibility in this housing typology. And so Dorothea spent time first sort of fixing what kind of drawing technique would be appropriate, and then developing those tracings. That's not dissimilar to Luca Patrick at Hariri Pontrini Architects. He was responsible for first developing this kind of axonometric diagram as a consistent drawing form to start to unpack almost literally different residential tower projects in the office. Luca ultimately stayed on for the summer. I would say last year, more than 80% of the drip, although it's not guaranteed, I should say, but more than 80% of the drip interns actually were hired on by their host firm to continue for the rest of the summer. Luca, I believe, is still working now that he's graduated, is still working at Hariri Poncherini Architects. And at the same time, they took on a new intern last summer, Ryan Wong, who actually continued or in parallel developed the diagram of built work, or in this case, urban development projects. So it was Ryan's job to actually develop that or adapt that same sort of exploded axonometric to larger scale projects in the office. Here's Skylar Chan for public work, a different kind of tracing. This was section drawings that Skylar was responsible for of existing steel mill on a park site that public work was working on. And it was a bit of a connect the dots or archival project where there was a section of the pieces of the steel mill that were left on the site and how they could fill that in. This is Orly Sack at GH3. It's interesting because GH3, I don't think I have a slide of the 2023 option, but Orly worked on a concept package that actually was its scope expanded as DRIP expanded. One thing I should say is that there is opportunity always for firms to pivot in terms of the design research project that they define at the beginning of the 6 weeks. Might change, might pivot, might be augmented or adjusted, and that's something that usually is productive and positive. And or at the very beginning, right before we start, there is a change because a new project came in the office. It's always very exciting. So Orly at GH3 actually developed a whole concept package. It was her charge to not only do some facade research that informed and populated some of the concept package, but to design and manage the entire production of this concept for a big park project in Edmonton. Teeple Architects, I'm showing here 2022, and then we'll show you 2023. Some firms actually develop, you will see the same project for both summers, totally acceptable insofar as it worked well. It's a longer term project and each drip summer will add to it. At Teeple, it's not quite that way, but it's very much about engaging the drip intern directly in the design process. They are a firm known for their innovation in design. Priscilla Barker here in 2022 actually isolated and drew in a comparative way library projects, first as precedents, and then Teeple library projects to start to draw conclusions about the future of libraries. Teeple Architects Ariel Clipperton in 2023 actually worked on a design project that was in joint venture with Two Row Architects and looking specifically at a collective space for the project that they were working on. And this is an example where a kind of a programmatic study actually develops into more of a historical cultural typology study as it informs the actual sketches of the design process. This is John Wu at ZAS Architects. At first glance, when you look at diagrams like this that John was responsible for. They seem to be a pretty straightforward sort of precedent analysis type of diagrams. When you look closer, it actually is assuming the same kind of grid and categorical typology, but in this case, it has to do with ways children learn. And so this is essentially building a catalog of learning spaces, and even in a more complex way, how sort of physical activity informs those learning spaces. Super interesting. Shift to Lamas, who we all know, Vivian and James. Nuri, as their intern, did a whole material study, looked at two market suppliers of cement board cladding and actually cataloged them to look for customization opportunities for cladding of buildings. And this work really involved some categorical category work and research and other drawings of combining different sizes of cladding together. Denegri Basai, this is an example, a good example of how a firm actually just keeps the same drip project for the 2 summers. This is Giacomo D'Andrea. They developed very, very large scale, as you can see here, foam core sketch models that actually are used in combination with photography to test the proportion of spaces on an ongoing project. And this is designed, the model itself is designed to be fast, flexible, interchangeable of pieces. This is Cameron Manor the year later, last summer in 2023, continuing that work. Of course, different projects, but it was so successful the year before that this is now a kind of research method that Denegri Basai is perfecting. Super Cool Architects, David Siddall actually developed, first part was actually to design a kind of what I would call a sustainability nutrition label, for lack of a better word, where there was a kind of post construction analysis of different scale residential projects, as Super Cool does so well. Looking at those projects in terms of their emissions and relating them to construction techniques. Wayne Squadron Studio, Joshua Frew. This is actually a great example of an internship where the design research project was actually left intentionally loose. They're a studio that did not they're not customarily hiring student interns. They were very excited by the prospect, and so it was left quite open. In the end, since the studio actually has a landscape architecture firm, and interior design firm all in one, Joshua actually developed an comparative analysis of different projects, looking at them from facade to interior space to landscape strategy point of view, and develop this very long timeline. So just we call meat and potatoes of it, I don't know. The bones of it, eligibility, really this is for 3rd and 4th year students in the BAAS program of all streams. The actual prerequisite is that you have completed at least 1 full credit of an ARC 300 level course. It is a full credit course, and the course itself, ARC 495, is delivered in the first 6 weeks of the summer term. In our case, May 6th to June 17th, I believe, this year. And the evaluation for your final grade in this full credit course is determined by the internship performance, where your host firm has a lot of input and feedback in that part of the evaluation, participation and contribution in the seminars that you conduct with me, and of course, your final DRIP document. That is essentially your research record that you submit at the end. So the Wednesday seminar, as I mentioned, you will be full-time working in your host office. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Wednesdays are reserved for your academic work, of which includes mandatory attendance to the seminar offered at Daniels from 2 to 5 on Wednesdays for the 6 weeks of the internship. During the seminar, I will give some lectures on different models of design research in practice, and you will have the opportunity to really position your work, specifically the sort of research methods that you're undertaking in the larger disciplinary context. We do this by looking at a number of precedents. We also enjoy grouping interns. I find that actually the Wednesday seminars is really more of an excuse for all of you to really get together and compare notes and really talk about your individual experiences. As I mentioned, about 80%, maybe more, of the internships assume only one intern in their offices. And so being the only DRIP intern in your respective offices that Wednesday afternoon is a great opportunity to really get the support and the exchange of ideas together, otherwise being alone. So what's really also important, I would say, at this moment is that it is a full credit course. You do get a final grade, but it's not, I guess the evaluation is not necessarily based on the same type of criteria that you would normally be evaluated on in your studios and coursework. This is really a different kind of skills. You're not being, assessed necessarily on your design contributions in your internship work. It's really on the kind of rigor of listening and collaborating in your host office and offering what you know and what you have and honing those skills. Of course, there is the final research record in the form of a final DRIP document that goes to the host firm as well as submitted to the course for grading. However, that is something we are working on from day one in the seminar, almost together as a group. And really, I think that it should be a very fulfilling experience for all. Compensation. So practitioners actually compensate their interns directly in the form of a lump sum stipend at the conclusion of the internship. It's this year $3,360. That is based on $20 per hour for 4 days a week for the 6-week duration. The internship is actually, by definition, for the University of Toronto, an academic internship. What that means is that the University of Toronto covers your insurance while you are at the host firm, even though you are not working on campus. The University of Toronto is still responsible, and you are insured by them. The stipend model allows for there to be no, I guess, conflict with academic integrity. Generally, this is a kind of way around. Generally, when you are working on material that contributes to academic work that is graded and put out into the world as academic work, it cannot be biased by motivation or agendas of other professional bodies. So in this case, there is compensation for work produced in the internship offices directly, and the Wednesdays is what qualifies as the sort of academic component of DRIP. I just thought that would be important for you to know. And also, I think that the Wednesdays, you really do need to understand them as that, as your opportunity and your time to sort of linger on the and reflect on what you're doing and contribute to the seminars and take all that in as you're going about the 6 weeks of internship. The application requirements, as Petros mentioned, it includes the form. It's actually very useful. The form is the same for all of the summer offerings. And within the form, it should be very obvious when you are applying to DRIP, and it will prompt you with the upload cues for the remainder for the other 3 components, which includes a CV, a letter of interest, and portfolio. So the curriculum vitae, it really is, I think this year, I was intent on making the requirements as, I don't know, not so onerous in the wrong ways. In other words, I don't want you to worry about formats or lengths or, even, we had an estimation of approximately 10-page portfolio. I don't want to impose anything that might require you to spend any time on editing something down or expanding it. It really wants to be as expedient as possible, where you spend your attention on putting your best foot forward in terms of creative work in general for the portfolio that we'll talk about. Curriculum vitae, very important. It's not, the purpose of the curriculum vitae is not to see what previous architecture experience or landscape architecture or any kind of design firm experience you've had in the past. It is absolutely not required. The CV's main purpose is in the matching. So if there is some interesting aspects to the CV in terms of that might identify some areas that you've been exposed to, and there's an interesting match with a firm in that regard. Also, this is the opportunity for you to list what softwares you might be proficient or novice at, as well as workshop training. So we actually, during the DRIP, internship session, interns or DRIP students have access to all the facilities, the workshop and other facilities at the school. And you can actually use those on behalf of your DRIP project. And we can, closer to the time, get into that. So actually having that on your CV is also helpful for the matching process. Letters of interest, it's very, very important here, since we are doing, let's say we're conducting this whole application process approximately a month earlier. We will not have the finalized list of firms until around the end of the month, this month. So we really do need to lean on other ways for you to express your preference of the different firms not having that final list. And actually, I think it will make it for a better, more precise matching process. Instead of ranking firms, you're being asked this year to identify areas of interest in practice and areas of interest in research methods. If any of you have already gone on to the website to look at the prompts and the description for the letter of interest, there is a list of keywords, and it's really just a matter of choosing your top 5 keywords in each of these 2 categories. This, I think, is a very important component. It's a new component as part of the letter of interest that will really help to make the matching process successful. Of course, the letter should include motivation for participating in DRIP. And describing a course of highlight while you've been at Daniels is really useful. If you imagine that the committee of faculty that is first reading your letters of interest, and then the respective firms that are reading your letters of interest, that will be very useful to understand what rocks your boat, what has been a highlight is great. And then, of course, your identification of interest areas. The portfolio is really just a collection of creative work. It can be design work, research work, artwork, really just what best represents your creative aptitude. It does not have to have all of the above. It's definitely an and or situation here. The purpose of the portfolio is really the openness of the portfolio, the purpose of it is really to invite all streams to participate in DRIP. As you can see in the range of design research projects, it is not all about design strength. So the portfolio really should just include the work that you deem expresses the creative aspects of you and of your experience so far. The portfolio is something that does naturally carry a lot of weight given its visual impact. So the graphic clarity is very important, as I'm sure you all know very well by now. The selection process, so there's a kind of two-step selection process. The first is that a committee of Daniel's faculty that also constitutes the DRIP academic committee, 8 faculty members that take the applications and review them. They also are given your grades. So grades are assessed along with the CV, letter of interest and portfolio. And I think that that's important. However, it's also important to know that the partnering practitioners do not see grades. They are only given portfolios, letters of interest, and CVs. So the committee first creates a short list of candidates, and the short list is really 6 or 7 dossiers that are then selected to be given to the partnering firms, the list of partnering firms. That's why your keywords, your 5 top areas of interest in each of those categories are so useful. It's useful to understand in the matching process after the long list, so to speak, the long short list is selected by the committee. Those 6 or 7 dossiers are passed on to partnering firms. Each student on the long short list has the opportunity to compete for at least 4 or 5 firms on the list. So you would be repeated in terms of what short lists you then make it onto for the respective firms. And they in turn rank those students. So they rank those dossiers in terms of preference, and it comes back to the committee and there's a final matching. So ultimately, the assessment for the selection process is really the academic component, the portfolio strength, and the DRIP match. These are the important dates. DRIP information session, of course, today. Student applications are due February 19th by midnight. And the selection committee shortlist by March 13th. The firms rank their students. Students are notified by the 21st of March. Students' acceptance deadline is March 27th, and the final paperwork gets submitted April 9th for a May 6th start. So that's it. Sure you have a lot of questions. Happy to take those. No questions? So where can we find the keywords for the letter of interest? On the Daniels website. I'm not sure if Tina or Tanya, who's on the call, if you can put in the chat the link. Actually, the link is right above. Yes. Oh my God, many questions. So do you all see the link? It's on the Daniels website, and there under the description for the letter of interest is the list of keywords that you can choose from in your top 5 rank. It is considered a summer course. The question is it considered a summer course? Do we need to claim that we take summer semester? Yes. So you do pay tuition for the summer course, and it's a full credit course. Oh my goodness. Okay. I want to get through the questions properly. Is there a page limit on the portfolio we submit? There is not a page limit. There is a size limit, 10 megabytes. What constitutes a page for the portfolio? It doesn't matter. There's no limit. There's no criteria for how many pages. So yeah, there's no limit. So there would be multiple shortlists announced, 1 per firm. We don't announce the shortlist. That's done internally. The committee will create a long list and send to each participating firm 6 or 7 dossiers of shortlisted students. And then the firms select from those 6 or 7 dossiers, and they rank them in order of preference. And that comes back to the committee, and then there's literally a matching process that happens. The committee does create a longer list, slightly longer list of shortlisted candidates than there are internships available. We do this for 2 reasons. One, so that there is more to choose from and to give, sometimes in that committee selection process, there is, just to actually be very sure that the candidates that are being selected are always being compared to more. It's always makes for a more accurate process. And at the same time, for a better matching of firm and design research project to students. So there will be more students in the shortlist than are actually placed in the internships. We also do this so that in the event that there is an additional or a late addition to the roster, we have more selected students in the shortlist in case we do need, or in case a student has to drop out. There was one case where they could not accept their DRIP internship, and so we had to go down the list to replace that student. Is there a page limit? So is that clear? There is you essentially are notified when you are offered a position with the firm. You're not notified if you're if you're on a short list. Absolutely, you can include visual studies, creative work in the portfolio, and you should. What is a good way to graphically represent research in the portfolio? If the portfolio is all research, how many works of research would you include? We recommend. I think that in general, the portfolio should be, and again, doesn't have to be, it all depends on even the graphic layout of the portfolio, but typically we will see like 10 to 20 page portfolio. And that means that, and that's like 10 spreads, right? 10 to 20 spreads. And that, and so when you look at it like that, I think that when you are presenting research in the portfolio, especially if the portfolio is all research, what's really important is what the kind of research objective is, should be absolutely clear. And then a kind of visual breakdown of the work that you did and some of the conclusions that you drew from that research. So sometimes if you can imagine some of the coursework, some of the electives that you do, really that work is research work, and how the format of the final submission, so to speak, and the research record is really important. So in some ways, if you were trying to describe the research work and where is the thinking, where's the innovation in this research, which is what you will have to do for your final drip document, is really what should be evident in the portfolio. I think you should avoid, just like whatever you include in the portfolio, whether it's visual studies work, design work, research, you should avoid big chunks of small text. I don't think I need to say this to all of you, but that should be avoided. The portfolio is not really the space to start, reading dissertations. But you can definitely pull out excerpts. You can have almost areas where should the reviewer want to read a little bit more, they could refer to a short paragraph. But there should be a kind of rhythm of visual, even if that visual is just a statement or, sort of larger font statement or question or quote. Is it possible to do drip in the first summer subsection and do a design build during the, yes, absolutely. So it's really the schedule, as you will see, that Petros will present the other summer offerings. I think there's also studies abroad and design build. They're not all overlapping, so absolutely, if they don't overlap, you are open to take both. In fact, the application form, as I mentioned already, has all of the summer offerings on the same application form. There's also a space, I believe, on the application form if you are applying to more than one and you are admitted to more than one, you have to declare what your order of preference is. Like when sometimes if they're overlapping. So for example, last year, I know there were a couple of the studies abroad that overlapped with DRIP, and students had to declare on the form if they were accepted to all of them, what was their ranked order of preference, that kind of thing. How can we submit links to our portfolio if they are published online? I would strongly discourage that. Let's put it that way. It's not, you can do it, but I would strongly discourage that. How detailed should the CV be? Is it restricted to one page like a resume, or should it go beyond that? It is pretty much like a resume. So it can be one page. Typically they are one page and they might go over to a second page, but not often, right? If you can manage to keep it within the one page, that's great. If not, no big deal. And it should have what you would typically find in a resume. Obviously your educational, where you're at in terms of education, your awards or honors should show up in your CV. Any kind of extracurricular work that you've done, if you do have other work experience, that would show up on your CV. And then of course your aptitudes, if you have workshop training, if you have software skills, that would also come in at the end. Language is also interesting and important sometimes with historical research. If you're fluent in German, we did have a project that was tracking all of the piazzas in Venice, sort of drawing out the different piazzas in Venice. And so, some Italian was helpful, anything like that. So it's not really about detailed. The question is, how detailed should the CV be? Is it restricted to one page? The detail is not really important. It's much more about the factual information. However, I would recommend that if you are listing a previous work experience, it's very good to include one sentence about in what capacity you work there. So, if you said, well, I worked at the Dairy Queen, it's like, well, I was actually in charge of, right? So, but also if you list any award that you received, it's helpful to say what the award was given for, that kind of thing, but not detailed beyond that. For fourth year students, if we are graduating this June, can we still participate in DRIP? Absolutely. When the firm select, and even just to sort of continue that, if you are participating in DRIP, and you're graduating in June, it means that you have all of your credits. You will still get the additional credit and grade. However, it doesn't go towards your degree courses. It's just an extra credit. When the firm select a student, will there be the next step like interview? No interviews. It's has to be very efficient and pretty fast process. That's why, your material should just be very clear and visually easy to read. Can you apply if you are getting 1 credit of 300 courses by the end of April? The answer is yes, you can. But it needs to be 1 full credit, not a half credit. So you should just be careful about that. But absolutely, if you have 1 full credit, you're eligible to apply. So is it recommended we have 10 spreads, not 10 individual pages? I'm sorry that everyone's dwelling on the size. 10 spreads is great. I would say, judging from the previous 2 years, 10 spreads is a minimum, I would say, but you could actually, have a spread and as you should, nice white space around drawings. Don't crowd drawings. That's why we're not putting any estimate or limit on the number of pages for the portfolio. It doesn't always mean that you're adding more projects or more research or more visual studies projects. You're actually just have the space and the breathing room to lay it out as you want. But in terms of the way, we had 84 applications last year for 20 internships. And so the committee first, when you're looking at a portfolio, 10 spreads is great. If they're nicely populated. Sometimes it was nice, especially if there was a project that was a little more multivalent or complex. It would have been nicer to have, I suspected last year that students edited down their portfolio that would have otherwise been longer to suit the approximate 10 pages requirement, and made me realize that it's great to add more if you feel like it's relevant, but not for the sake of making it longer. So 10 pages when, a reviewer that is very used to, like we are, the 8 faculty members are, do also admissions in general. You can go quickly through the portfolio and get a very good sense. And I would say 10 spreads is the minimum. Some firms have separate applications for summer internships. Can we apply for them while waiting for the results of DRIP, or doesn't make sense? Absolutely. That doesn't preclude, one has nothing to do with the other, so to speak. Firms that have engaged and partnered with us to participate in DRIP actually are committed to DRIP. They would never say, oh, well, I have another student a master's student applying to my firm for a summer internship. So I'll take them and not do DRIP or not take the DRIP student. It doesn't work that way. Their commitment is specifically to take on students through DRIP for the 6-week duration. And whether you also apply to the firm for an internship is fine. There's no reason why you wouldn't do that as well. Can portfolio be either one of portrait or landscape? Yes, either one, doesn't matter. Silly questions, there are no silly questions, but what is a spread versus a page? A spread is like a spread of a book is technically 2 pages opened up side by side. A page, of course, is one of those. So those spread and page, if that makes sense. It really doesn't matter because you could say that a horizontal, because it's all digital, you could say that the horizontal proportion of the screen or of an 11 by 17 is 1 page. Like spreads and pages are only useful if it's a printed out document, clearly. So even the 10 pages versus the 10 spreads is kind of irrelevant in this digital realm, if that makes sense. Hey, any other question? Did I miss any questions? So, yeah, I mean, I strongly encourage you to apply. I feel like DRIP has been very fulfilling to both students and practitioners alike. I do have practitioners actually writing to me saying, are you hosting DRIP this summer? So I'm very excited by another successful year of DRIP. I hope that the earlier timeline will be helpful. And the fact that we are trying to make the application requirements as free of format stipulations as possible to be helpful. Sometimes I know it's helpful to say, well, I think one rule of thumb, for example, is that your statement or your letter of interest should be about a page, right? That also is a rule that could be broken. You don't need to abide by that. I want you to really concentrate on what the content is of your letter based on the description on the Daniels website of what should be included in the letter of interest. That's one of the biggest changes this year, is that we want you to include your areas of interest in, sorry, of course you're including areas of interest, but specifically keywords from the list of keywords published on the website of areas of interest of practice, as well as areas of interest of research methods. The areas of interest of research methods are things like whether you like drawing and modeling, historical research, tracings, analysis, things like that. Areas of sort of keywords that constitute areas of interest in practice have to do with urbanism, landscape architecture, infrastructure, detail scale, tectonics, even material research, that kind of thing. Oh, some more questions. Sorry. Also, do we include non-related artwork experience, like non-related to architecture? The answer is absolutely yes. If you think it constitutes creative work that really helps to paint an accurate picture of where your strengths are and where your interests are, then you're absolutely open to do that. And sorry, can you please answer this one? I'm not sure what that is, but do you need a minimum CGPA to apply? You do not need a minimum of CGPA. However, as you can imagine, it is a very competitive process. Having said that, the grades are only one component of when we, as a committee, and only the committee sees, as I mentioned, only a committee sees your grades for the admissions process. The firms do not see grades. We actually give ranking for the grades. The I guess academic component, which includes the CV combined with your letter of interest and the portfolio. So we each give a kind of ranking for each of those, and then it gets averaged out. So grades are important in this competitive process. However, it's only one component of consideration. Do we put non-architecture related work on the CV? Yes. Because you're also not expected to have much. Some people do, but most people, this would be their first work experience in architecture or design related work. Is there a word limit for the statement of interest? No. No, but just be smart about, you don't want to write a dissertation. But there's no word limit. I do say generally 1 page, but again, you're all busy with your schoolwork. We want to not make it so onerous. And so I would say that you definitely should get in the habit of tightening your anything you write to submit for any application, just because the reviewers are reading a lot of these. So be tight with it, but don't worry that you've gone over a page or that kind of thing. Is the letter of interest, must the interest be numerically ranked? Yes, that would be helpful. Not critical, but the idea is that you would rank your top 5 keywords in both categories. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so this is really important. I'm just going to read this question out loud by Min. In the letter of interest, must the interest be numeric? Oops, sorry, just lost that. Be numerically ranked in a formal list, or could it be implied in the writing language? Not implied. Absolutely explicit. 5 top areas of interest in practice and 5 top areas of interest in research methods, directly taken from the keywords offered on the website. Just as a side note, those same lists of keywords are given to the firms for their selection in top 5, and that's what will make for a very good a very good matching process. Could we add our own areas of interest apart from the keywords on the website? Absolutely. I think it should be both and though, as I said, you don't want to be missed, I guess, because if we're really, using the keyword preferences, and, we might have whatever 70% of the students choosing the same keywords, it still will be helpful because the firms themselves will also change keywords. And then we will always be in a position, especially as a committee, to look at the dossier as a whole, understand the nature of the firm and the design project they're proposing, and we inevitably make that match that way as well. But you don't want to be missed by not engaging in the keywords offered, but you can absolutely add any information that might shed light if it's not explicit in our own keywords. Do the reviewers for DRIP also review applications for design, build, and study abroad? No, we only review for DRIP. Would the 2 lists count towards the 250 words in the statement of interest? There is no 250 words for the statement of interest. But the answer to that question is, if you want it to, yes, it will. If you don't want it to, it won't. But there's no word requirement for this statement of interest. There was mentions to firms selecting more than one candidate. Are there many firms who choose to do that? Not many firms take on more than one intern, but there have been, and I think that there will likely be this summer as well. And we would know that by the time we're doing, making the selection process. But it did happen in the past where a firm said, oh, you know what, actually, I'm going to take 2 instead of 1. And it was a little later in the game. But yeah, no, most firms take on 1 intern per summer. Did I catch all the questions? I think I did. Okay. If there are no more questions, I really encourage you to look at the website, the posting on the website. Everything should be very clear. And if you're planning on applying, oh, here's one more question. Just finishing this thought. If you are planning on applying, it's a good idea to actually open the application form and see how, all of the questions that are organized on the form in advance. There's another question. Can I take it with other summer courses? You can only if it's not at the same time in the schedule, meaning DRIP runs from May 6th to June 17th. And if they're not during that time, then you can, but you can't take two summer or another course with DRIP that happens during that time. Okay. If there are no more questions, thank you so much. Look forward to having many of you apply to DRIP and look forward to another great year. Thank you, everyone. Bye.